Your attachment style was decided before you could talk, before you understood what relationships were, before you had any say in the matter. And right now, without your permission, it is shaping who you are attracted to, how you behave when someone gets too close, why you react the way you do when a partner doesn't text back, and whether you believe deep down that you are worthy of being loved. This is not a small thing. Attachment researchers estimate that your early attachment experiences influence up to 70% of your relationship patterns as an adult. And the most uncomfortable part, most people have no idea which style they have, or why they keep repeating the same patterns in every relationship they enter. The story starts in post-war Britain. Psychiatrist John Bowlby was working with emotionally disturbed children and noticed something that nobody had formally studied before. Children who were separated from their mothers, even briefly, showed profound and lasting psychological distress. Not just sadness, a deep disruption in their ability to form trusting relationships with anyone afterward. Bowlby proposed something radical for the time, that the bond between a child and their primary caregiver is not a luxury or a social nicety. It is a biological necessity. He called this attachment theory. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Humans are wired from birth to seek closeness with a protective figure, and the quality of that early closeness becomes the template for every relationship that follows. Bowlby's colleague, psychologist Mary Ainsworth, took the theory further. In the 1970s, she designed an experiment called the strange situation, one of the most replicated studies in developmental psychology. She placed toddlers in a room with their mother, then had the mother leave briefly, then return. The researchers watched carefully how the child responded when the mother left, and more importantly, how the child responded when she came back. What they found was that children fell into distinct categories, distinct patterns of response that were surprisingly consistent and surprisingly predictive of future behavior. These patterns became the foundation of everything we now know about attachment styles. The first style is secure attachment, and it is the one we all want. Secure children in Ainsworth's experiment were upset when their mother left, but quickly calmed down when she returned. They used her as a safe base, exploring the room freely when she was present, returning to her when scared. As adults, securely attached people are comfortable with intimacy and independence. They can be close to others without losing themselves. They communicate their needs directly. They trust that their partner will be there for them without needing constant reassurance. They handle conflict without catastrophizing. Research consistently shows that securely attached people have longer, more satisfying relationships, better mental health outcomes, and stronger social support networks. Approximately 50 to 60% of the population has a secure attachment style. The second style is anxious attachment, also called anxious preoccupied in adults. These children were extremely distressed when their mother left far more than the secure children. But here is the key difference. When she came back, they couldn't be comforted. They would cling to her, cry, push her away, pull her back. They couldn't settle. As adults, anxiously attached people are preoccupied with their relationships. They need frequent reassurance that their partner loves them. They read too much into small signals. An unanswered message becomes evidence of abandonment. A partner needing space feels like rejection. They tend to put their relationship at the center of their identity and feel incomplete without a partner. Anxious attachment affects approximately 20% of the population and is more common in people who had inconsistent caregiving, parents who were sometimes warm and available, sometimes emotionally absent or unpredictable. The third style is avoidant attachment, called dismissive-avoidant in adults. These children showed the least visible distress when their mother left. They appeared fine, kept playing, seemed unbothered. When she returned, they ignored or avoided her. They looked independent. But physiological measurements told a different story. Their stress hormones were just as elevated as the anxious children. They had learned to suppress the outward expression of their attachment needs, because expressing those needs had historically not been met. As adults, Avoidant people are deeply uncomfortable with emotional intimacy. They value independence above all else. They pull away when relationships get serious. They describe themselves as not needing anyone. They are attracted to the idea of a relationship but suffocated by the reality of one. Avoidant attachment affects approximately 25% of the population. The fourth style is disorganized attachment, and it is the most complex and the most painful. These children showed a paradox. Their caregiver was simultaneously their source of comfort and their source of fear. When the mother returned, they would approach her and then freeze, or run toward her and then run away. Their behavior had no coherent strategy because the normal strategy, go to your caregiver when scared, was itself frightening. Disorganized attachment is most commonly associated with early trauma, abuse, or severe neglect, situations where the person who was supposed to protect you was also the person who hurt you. As adults, people with disorganized attachment often experience intense, chaotic relationships. They desperately want closeness but are terrified of it. They may oscillate between idealizing and devaluing partners. They often struggle with emotional regulation and have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and complex trauma symptoms. Now here is where it gets personal. Your attachment style does not just affect how you behave in relationships. It shapes who you are attracted to in the first place. Anxious and avoidant people are disproportionately attracted to each other, creating what researchers call the anxious-avoidant trap. The anxious person's need for closeness triggers the avoidant person's need for space. The avoidant person's withdrawal triggers the anxious person's fear of abandonment. Each person's behavior makes the other's worse. The anxious person pursues harder. The avoidant person withdraws further. It is one of the most common and most painful relationship dynamics in existence, and it feels like chemistry, like intensity, like passion. But what it actually is two insecure attachment styles activating each other's deepest wounds. And now the part that almost nobody talks about, and the most important part of this entire video. Your attachment style can change. This is not wishful thinking. It is one of the most robust findings in attachment research over the last 30 years. Bowlby himself believed the attachment system remained open to revision throughout life. And longitudinal studies that followed people for decades, confirmed it. The concept is called earned security. It refers to people who began life with insecure attachment, but developed a secure attachment style through corrective experiences later in life. Not by forgetting their past, not by pretending the early experiences didn't happen, but by having new relationships, romantic, therapeutic, or even deeply consistent friendships, that provided what the early environment couldn't. Research identifies 3 primary pathways to earn security. The first is therapy, specifically attachment-focused therapy or somatic approaches that work with the body's stored responses to early experiences. Studies show that consistent therapeutic relationships, over time, literally rewire the neural pathways associated with attachment. The second is a secure romantic relationship. Being in a long-term relationship with a securely attached partner, someone who is consistently available, responsive, and non-threatening, gradually updates the internal working model of what relationships feel like. It is slow. It is not a quick fix, but the research is clear. Stable, secure love changes people at a neurological level. The third pathway is self-awareness. Simply understanding your attachment style, recognizing your patterns, naming your triggers, understanding where they come from, creates psychological distance between the pattern and the response. You cannot change what you cannot see. A 2019 study published in the journal Developmental Psychology followed 243 people from infancy to age 45. It found that while early attachment classification was predictive of adult patterns, it was not deterministic. Life experiences, particularly significant relationships and deliberate self-reflection, were powerful enough to shift attachment security across the lifespan. The researchers concluded that attachment is best understood not as a fixed trait but as an ongoing dynamic process, one that can be disrupted by trauma but also healed by safety. What this means practically is this: if you recognize yourself in the anxious or avoidant description, you are not broken. You adapted. Your nervous system learned the rules of the environment you grew up in and built strategies to survive it. Those strategies made sense. Once, understanding that, really understanding it, not just intellectually but emotionally, is the beginning of change. Here is what I want you to take from this video. Your attachment style is not your identity. It is a pattern, a deeply ingrained, emotionally powerful pattern, but a pattern nonetheless. Patterns can be understood. They can be interrupted. They can, with time and the right conditions, be changed. The anxiously attached person who learns to tolerate uncertainty without chasing reassurance. The avoidant person who learns that closeness does not have to mean loss of self. These are not fantasies from a self-help book. They are documented outcomes in peer-reviewed research on real people who did the difficult, often painful work of examining their own patterns. Attachment research does not promise that change is easy. It promises that change is possible, and for most people, that is enough to start. Which attachment style do you recognize in yourself, and has it shown up in your relationships the way the research describes? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and this is one of those topics where other people's experiences are genuinely illuminating. Next week, we are going into darker territory, the psychology of narcissism, psychopathy, and what researchers call the dark triad. If you want to understand the most difficult personalities you will ever encounter, and why some people seem to have no empathy at all, subscribe and make sure you do not miss it. See you in the next video.